as Siraj said, my name is Jeremy Nelson. I'm an IT lead at Wayne State College. I've been a primary web developer at Wayne State for the last 17 years. And I'm going to talk about how we leverage the Jadu CMS to power all the content for our campus-wide digital signage solution. Give you a little bit of a story about what we use for hardware. First, we take basically a mini PC and we connect it to a large format display, and the mini PC just pulls web content off our website. It displays that content in usually a slideshow type format. We do have other formats for it though. The mini PC started out as like I don't know if you guys remember Cappuccino PC from back in the day. They used to make a small form factor. I think they still do. We've tried Raspberry Pis. Those work really good for static, basic web page content. But if you get into streaming or you get into Flash, the Pis don't really keep up that well. Right now, our mini PC of choice is a Intel NUC with an i3 processor. It's about $230. Any large format display, consumer grade, you want to attach to that. We use a lot of like LG 50-inch off Amazon for less than $600. So our solution is incredibly economical for us. The content is driven by our CMS now. It didn't always used to be, but now it is. So that portion of it is no cost in terms of a signage solution price tag. And the hardware is really cheap. So for us, this is a really elegant solution. That being said, it does have its challenges. It's had its challenges for a long time. That's why we went to the CMS to find a solution. So that being said, there were challenges. Now let's talk about the challenges. Do I just click the pad here to get it to go? Yeah, perfect. As always, the biggest challenge with the web is publishing. Training people how to use Dreamweaver and use WebDAV to publish slideshow style web page content. If anybody's used Dreamweaver or published WebDAV, trying to teach an office assistant how to do that properly is a pain in the butt. And to do that into a directory structure and file naming path that looks like that, so that content shows up in the right place on the screen at the right time for the right days in the right order. Needless to say, we had a lot of help desk issues. We had a lot of troubleshooting. We had a lot of, never mind, the webmaster will do it because we can't teach you how to do this anymore. So we went from there to, how do we fix this with the CMS? When we went live with the CMS, we realized we had to have some requirements to the system, and those were, we had to be able to distribute that content. We had to get authorship out into the wild again instead of having all of it rely on our webmaster to get the job done. We had to make the process simple, because if the publishing process isn't simple, your office assistant is going to say, you're making more work for me, and then they won't do it. If you don't make it really easy, they won't be able to handle it anyway, so it's not going to work. We had to get a lot of the IT bottlenecks out of the way, so getting all that initial setup of directory structures and all that kind of stuff and being able to train somebody on how to handle all that. We had to get IT kind of out of the way so that the publishing process could just happen. And most importantly, we had to be able to replicate that slideshow style digital signage that we had been used to. We had to be able to do that kind of in the same fashion. We had to display it the same way. So we looked at three potential options. The first of which was directories. I thought in the beginning that directories were going to be the perfect solution. The records could be used as individual slides, and then the category structure within the directory could be used to group those slides together, play them as a slideshow. Directories don't have workflow, so I can't put an office assistant in charge of an entire directory of digital signage because they're going to be stepping on each other's toes all the time, and the directory interface is a little more complicated than we wanted to put into the hands of a typical office assistant or publisher. I will get to a directory-powered digital signage solution later. So the next we looked at home pages. Home pages would have hit all the bells and whistles. We would have had workflow. We would have had a custom module or a custom widget written to act as a slideshow. But again, we have a more complicated interface with home pages than we do with what ended up becoming the best solution, which was document pages. Document pages are the easiest thing for us to teach anybody how to use in the control center. It's the most simple interface, required no retraining on our part to get an office assistant to learn how to use this system. Each page can function as a slide, and then the document as a whole groups those slides together for a presentation, and I can apply workflow to it. So I can keep Office Assistant A from editing Kiosk B or Digital Signage B. On our campus for 12 years, we've called them kiosks, so if I use that term, it's the same thing as digital signage. So here's how we initially set this up. Our document pages, you can see, have a image, the page image functions as a background for the slide, and then any content in the page text would just get overlaid on top of that background image. That gives us all the flexibility we need in the HTML editor to create whatever kind of custom look and feel we wanted on a per slide basis on our slideshows. In addition to that, we leverage the additional keywords field in the metadata of the document to add things like change the refresh rate on the slide so that this slide lasts 30 seconds instead of 10, hide the header, other different custom settings we set. So this gave us the option, this gave us that custom look and feel flexibility we had before. So we've really now hit like all our bells and whistles. All of our publishing is taken care of. This is a good thing. So now we've distributed and simplified the process, and our webmaster's responsibilities now consisted of making that initial document, setting up any custom settings, making a few example slides to show whoever they're going to train, the office assistant or whoever's going to take over that duty. Then our webmaster goes out, trains the user, turns over the control of that to them, and I create the admin account and the workflow, and we're done. We don't have to do anything else. It's all in their hands. The webmaster doesn't have to deal with slides anymore and making all that kind of content. It's out in the wild. But how do we turn what looks like a document page on a website into 60-inch digital signage like this? And the answer to that is custom scripting. Initially, we used a number of custom scripts to map the IP address of the requesting Intel NUC to the document ID that we've assigned for that piece of digital signage. So when the kiosk hits the server and it requests the server, that IP address says, give back all the pages for this document ID and put them in one page. So you can see how we map that there. Every page in the document is then set inside its own div. All the divs are hidden except the first one. And then we just use some simple jQuery to rotate through those divs, showing and hiding and showing and hiding and showing and hiding, creating a beautiful slideshow effect. So we get that nice digital signage with a very simple back-end interface. If you've ever worked on a software project, which everybody here probably has, you understand the concept of feature creep. So we put this out in the wild, and we had users using it, and suddenly they started coming back with, hey, wouldn't it be great if the system did this? And wouldn't it be awesome if the system did that? And can it do this? And that led us to building some pretty substantial increases in customizations, the first of which was our Kiosk Overriding feature. What that allows us to do is take a piece of digital signage and say, for this particular time window, this date time to this date time, don't show your normal content. Show this other document ID. That way, when our president has her inauguration event and has a 72-page slideshow that she wants to run in the atrium of our business building on two 50-inch screens, we don't have to go down there and have two IT guys rebooting those things at exactly the same time to get them to show. We can just say, while she's speaking between these two time windows, show this other document ID that we've already set up as the inauguration slideshow. So while she's giving her speech, that went off without a hitch, and as soon as she was done and the time window was over and the digital signage requested new content, it went back to doing its normal business. The next major piece of enhancement we added was a control console. Our admissions department brings kids on campus for visits. They bring them into a special visit room where they have created a custom slideshow tailored to that student and their family. So they have expressed interest in whatever, business, athletics, any of the clubs or stuff on campus. So admissions builds a custom slideshow for that student, for that set of parents, and they go through the slideshow. The problem is when the kid asks a question, or the parent has a question, the slideshow keeps running while they take the time to answer that question. So then they lose their place, and they got to wait for the slideshow to get back to where it was before. So we built a control console to do previous, next, play, and pause capability on that. This is a touch screen in the visit room that allows the admissions rep to simply walk up, tap the bottom of the screen to pause it, and then answer any questions, deal with any student issues, and then as soon as they're ready, boom, start right back up where they left off and keep the train rolling. That works really great, but in a situation like our donor wall, where we have, 500 names on a screen to list donors for our foundation, we needed a way to just normally keep that one long slide going without impacting the rest of the slideshow. Because we don't necessarily want every slide to show for, say, 45 seconds, but we want this one to show for that long because of the content that's in it. So we added custom slide durations by actually adding a block of code into the page content of that page, that when the page content is parsed, if it sees that slide duration setting, it knows, okay, for this one slide, make it 45 seconds or make it 30 seconds or whatever you set it to. So that gave us all this extra features that we had before, and now we really had this working better than we had ever had it working before. So we've got everything done. We've accomplished our goals, our publishing is simplified, our authoring is distributed, we're displaying slideshows better than we've ever done it, but there's one last IT bottleneck left, and that was me. I still had to map IP address to document ID in the custom scripts. I still had to write all the timing code to handle between this time window, override with this document ID. So the only answer to that is let's modulize it. I took all the custom scripts and I built a couple custom tables and I created a module out of it. The module allows my webmaster and the kiosk hardware maintainer to handle all of the digital signage on campus without me ever getting involved. I don't know how many of these digital signage kiosks we have, and I don't know when new ones get made because I've removed myself from the process. So here's how it looks. You can see it shows up in the menu on the left, just like every other module in the Jadu system. It lists content just like your document pages and home pages get listed. You'll notice in these two columns, we've got IP address mapped to document ID. The view live function allows you to, you click that link and it actually shows on your screen at your computer what this is going to look like on a 1920 by 1080 large format display, so you can get a sense of feel for how your documents are going to look. Here's the details page. Like I said, this is how we save those settings. What used to be stored in that additional keywords metadata field is now stored in database tables. So my webmaster doesn't have to remember those custom settings anymore. They're just an easy drop down or an easy, type in number of seconds kind of thing. You can see the two fields, IP address and document ID. That's where we map the Intel NUC hardware IP address to document ID in the CMS. Kiosk overrides are listed exactly like we list our kiosks, except instead of mapping IP address to document ID, I'm mapping a kiosk ID to a document ID. That way I'm overriding that particular instance of a kiosk rather than an IP address. And the only other setting that kiosk overrides have are start date, end date. They can override any other feature. So the entire screen looks the same for a kiosk override as it does for a regular kiosk. You can do all the refresh timings and the console types and show the header or don't show the header. But it also has start date, end date, and that gives you that time window so that during this window, if the kiosk asks for new data, show it this other document. So this is where I talk about a directory-driven kiosk. This is our Athletic Hall of Fame in about 2009. This is terrible. People walking into our basketball auditorium, this is how they had to go look for people to see who was in our Athletics Hall of Fame. At the time, we got a request to turn this into a kiosk with our old system. So I developed a custom database. We kind of worked it into our old system, doing some database calls to pull out a picture, pull out data, and turn it into a Hall of Fame that looks like this instead. So now our Hall of Fame has a touchscreen kiosk digital signage on the wall, and it presents like these on the left. You can see on the bottom picture there, there's a kind of a pullout with years in it. That's the search criteria, the filters that you can do within there that was built into the old system. And what we did is we took that old system and we exported all the data out of it, reformatted it to fit into a CMS directory, imported it into the directory, and then changed the custom scripting that we had to, instead of calling database tables, use the Jadu built-in directory builder functions to just pull out the category structure of the directory and use that as your filter instead. So it's all Ajax driven. So all we really had to do was change a couple of files on the back end to basically forklift the entire system from our old display to the CMS display, and nobody was the wiser. The front end didn't have to change. None of the end users knew anything changed. And the best part of all, we got to turn this over to the SID, and now our sports information director handles the entire Hall of Fame by himself. He uploads the pictures, he sets all the data, and I don't have to do any of the database management to get that data into the system, and our webmaster doesn't have to crop photos and fix those up anymore. So we've removed more IT bottlenecks and have a more powerful system in the end. So another bit about directories here, because that seems to be the theme of the day. I have to give a big thank you to John Wheat from Messiah for this idea. He sent me some code that kind of blew a little hair I have left back. Using a directory as an offline data store, a directory that's not public, that's not live, but still using it to drive content on your website. Our marketing department has these kinds of bar graphs in our print publications that we send out to high schools, and we use it to compare our cost to the rest of the costs in the state for collegiate education, right? They wanted to be able to do this on our website without having to just recreate a new image every time the numbers changed. So I took the idea of saving each one of these bars as a directory record. So the value of 452.25 is in the University of Nebraska-Kearney out-of-state record in our bar charts directory. You can see that there. And then in the widget to build this on our page, all I do is go grab the criminal justice degree Gauss graph category. Those data elements are pulled out, and that image is an SVG that's dynamically built off those data elements and animates and looks really cool, just like what our marketing department asked for. But it's completely powered by directories. And I think after going through this process, the ability to use directories as just a raw database, a raw data store to drive those other elements on your website, your supplements, your widgets, the other custom code that you want to use, is probably going to be the most powerful thing we look for moving forward on our site. Future enhancements to the module. Like I said, I want to integrate directories as a kiosk type. That's going to be kind of the next big thing. I want to enable our documents to function in a non-live fashion, just like I talked about non-live directories. I want our digital signage kiosks, the documents themselves, to be non-live. That way they don't show up in Google search results. They're not going to be indexed. You're not going to get any of those SEO issues with somehow a digital signage got indexed by Google and now you've got search results that aren't right. And in the event, and this obviously never happens to anybody in here, but in the event that the CMS is unreachable and the website is down, I don't want all the digital signage on my campus to show a 404 page. So the idea there is to create some type of a ping to the server before it requests new data to say, hey, are you still alive? If you're still alive, I'm going to request new data, but if you're not alive, I'm just going to roll with what I've already got. That way, none of my signage dies if, for whatever reason, the website becomes unreachable. In the end, I'd like to have the other CMS content types like news, events, galleries, those other things that have that repetitive slideshow type format. I want to bring those in as kiosk types too. And the last big one, and this kind of goes along with what Siraj mentioned about shibboleth and user authentication, I'm really kind of excited about creating user authenticated self-service digital signage kiosks where at potentially like the registrar's office or financial aid or some other place where a student has got to do some type of business process, I can have an Intel NUC and a touchscreen display, and they can do that business process right there by just logging into the website, going to the student information system, going to whatever bill paid, filling out whatever X form they need to fill out. And we don't need to have a full PC set up or a bunch of desks sitting there. We can handle it with just real simple, easy digital signage powered by the web. So that pretty much sums up digital signage at Wayne State. You guys got any questions?